Good morning, everyone. Let's talk about billet buy-in boxes, or what we bring now versus what I was bringing 10 and 12 years ago. Let's get into that. Unlike your Western country, if you want to up and go, you just go. So if you're in the EU borders, Canada to the US, it's almost a you just go, okay? There's very little restriction. Now Lynn, because she doesn't have a Canadian passport, would have to jump through a few hoops to get into the States, and for me it's just not worth the time and the effort. Canada's a big country as it is. But Lynn and I did run into this when we decided to go to Bangkok together for the first time. And guys, often they will take the Filipina aside and start grilling her as to why is she leaving the country. Okay, this happens all the time, and it happens more than it should, but you do see it. And so that very first time that we left the country, we played a little stupid is what we did. And I told Lynn we were going to play stupid. And we just walked, both of us, right up to the immigration officer. And he said, sir. And I went, pretending I didn't know what he was talking about. Pretend it was the accent and all of that type of thing. Anyway, he starts grilling her as to why is she leaving the country and da. And, Lynn being strong enough, she just says, I have a return ticket. If he leaves me, I have a return ticket. I just come home. And I have more than enough money to survive there while I'm there. And here's my hotel voucher. I can stay there. What is your problem? And then I just looked at the guy and I said, yeah, and what is your problem? And, sometimes, being a little bit firm can backfire on you. But in this case, we got lucky and it worked just fine. Okay, now, the second time we tried to travel, I was not with Lynn, and they did take her completely out of the line and start going after her. Now, I was still in the terminal, and I let it be known through text message. I asked Lynn to show them the text message, and I said, I will clear immigration, and I will come through and find out what is going on. 5 minutes later, she's walking through security into the departure lounge. But it does happen a lot, guys, and you have to be ready for it. But I would not, as your first order of business, have you not fly together. On that second trip, it was much, much easier because she already had a stamp in her passport showing that she does come home, okay? And she was able to show that we had also traveled, because we kept those previous travel documents. We showed that we have traveled before together. And we were going to a different country, if I'm not mistaken. Have to think about that. Might not have been. Might have been back to Bangkok again. But anyway, the main point of the exercise here is you can't just assume that the Filipina can get out of the country. They get pulled aside all the time. Okay, now in those first days when I was traveling, I was bringing everything. I mean, I brought hiking boots, I brought this and that and 100 other things. I brought so much stuff, guys. And in those early days, the reason that we were bringing some of this stuff, like I brought 2 boxes of granola bars, okay? 10, 12 years ago, you couldn't find that anywhere. Not even in the big city of Bangkok could you find it. Well, we didn't necessarily know if there was an international grocery aisle, so we weren't going to that depth. But you couldn't find it here in the Philippines. Now you can find a lot of those kind of snack things, but you couldn't back then. So we were having to bring some of that stuff because Lynn and I were in Malaysia, and we started hiking. And we knew we had to go across a bridge. And all the bridges we had experienced before were like these, 3-car length bridges to go over. And when you zoom down on your maps, you don't necessarily know how big that bridge is. Anyway, it turns out it's a monster bridge. It's like 200 cars. And Lynn's getting hungry, and that's why we started bringing granola bars. because I was hearing this crying going behind me. And of course, I didn't pick up on the fact that, you know, they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but they have snack, 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 and snack as well. So that's just, you know, their metabolism is based on that, right? So, you know, little things like that. I'm not talking about the toothpaste and all of that sort of thing. But here's what you can run into trouble with, and that is medical issues and your prescriptions. Now, just because Canada has legalized medical marijuana that you can get a prescription for certain level stuff, and other stuff you can get over the counter now. As a matter of fact, we can even grow personal plants now. It's not legal in the US, and it is not legal in the Philippines either. So prescription or not, you're not bringing that stuff here. You don't want to get yourself arrested for bringing something illegal into the country. Now, you may be able to show your prescription and all that sort of thing, but they might look at you strange and just say, yeah, you just forged that. You just don't know where the mindset's going to be, guys. You got to remember that immigrations are immigrations, and they pound their chest pretty hard. We've seen them pound their chest really hard going between Canada and the States too. It's just how it is, okay? You know, for instance, we had this miniature little bottle of bug spray because we did not know whether we were going to get into a malaria area for hiking. So we were carrying this stuff, and we went through the Philippines, and we went through Thailand, and, you know, we were in various countries. And then in Malaysia, we were flying back to the Philippines, at Cebu specifically. It was going direct to Cebu. So that would have been, no, that was still Malaysia. That's right. Have to think about this. Oh, sorry, sir, poison. And in the garbage it went. You just don't know when something like this is going to happen. You know, it's like the nail clippers with the nail file that's on it. You know, try and find a pair of nail clippers now, especially in a travel outlet that has the nail file on it. No. Airlines just don't allow them still. Now, as an example with me, I can't use regular deodorant. I can't use any of them. I've tried so many of them, even out of the health food store, etc. I can't get them to work. So I have to be careful because I've got psoriasis, and the last thing I need is to be sweating onto a psoriasis patch and having that pain all day long combined with the itch. So, you know, once you find something that works, you got to bring it with you, okay? Clothing is an example. When I first came here, I could not find men's underwear that would fit me. Nowhere. Went everywhere. Couldn't find any. They were all undersized, barely wearable. In other words, the elastic was so tight on them. And I was talking about this high too. Now, I hate to say it, but even a lot of my buddies are already seeing it, especially if you're going back and forth, how much the Filipino is chunking up. Oh my goodness, the thyroid issues that are popping into this country and such. You know, fold over, overweight elbows, you know what the type I mean, and the backs of the knees and that type of thing. So, you know, now I have no problem finding these clothes. And it's the same as I pointed out the other day on the amount of international food that you can find, even in cities like Cebu. Whereas before, you know, it was a treat to have Johnny's in Anglaise, where you could get, you know, chili and Campbell soup and, you know, some of these other things, even though you were paying, you know, 1.5 on the dollar. You know, really expensive. But they were probably buying it at retail, having it shipped here, and, you know, of course, you're going to have your markup, right? And the thing is that the Philippines is a whole chunk of islands, right? I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So, you know, our Balikbayan box arrives in Manila, period. It does not arrive anywhere else in the country first. And so then you've got that lag time for it to get to Cebu, because it's got to get on another ship to get down here. Now, compare that to today. What do we bring today? Well, now we don't bring much of anything because we leave clothes here. And guys, if you're going to leave clothing and such here that you're going to have somebody store for you, then, you know, maybe vacuum bags or something along those lines, because what we did find is even though we compressed out the air as much as we could, we made the mistake of putting everything in one big bag, and even though we dropped in 100 silica packets, boom, all went moldy, every last bit of it. So, you know, now we have a unit in Angeles, now we have a unit here in Cebu, and those clothes all hang, and we have people going in, you know, minimum once a month and just kind of dust things up and fluff the clothes, and then everything's just fine. But just stuff to keep in mind if you're going to leave stuff here with friends. It's not enough just with the silica packs. That's been our experience anyway, and we were in the driest area of the Philippines called Angeles, right? Now, you know, so what are the things that we bring now? Well, I still got to bring my handmade deodorant. I mentioned, you know, don't bring the medical marijuana and stuff. That's going to get you in trouble. Lynn uses some gummies for sleep, so we have to bring melatonin with us. But lo and behold, hey, there we go. Now we can find melatonin in the Philippines. Couldn't find it not that long ago. Not easily, readily, and inexpensive. You know, some knowledge on your basics of antibiotics and stuff can go a long way, because even with a basic medical practitioner here, not a, you know, it's kind of in between a nurse and a full-blown MD, they can write prescriptions for you. And some of this stuff, you can just ask for it and they'll give it to you. I asked about antibiotics because I had a infection in my toe, and the pharmacist was good, just says, no, I got a topical antibiotic, here you go, boom. 3 or 4 days you could just see it all improving, which is nice. Nobody wants to have this stuff go through the gut if it doesn't need to go through the gut, right? But things that we're sending now are things like, you know, cranberries, the quality, you know, by the time we ship it here, it's still probably cheaper than what we saw the other day at Ayala. But the quality is that much better, and, you know, we've got a Philabilic buy-in box anyway. So, you know, find out what's important to you when you do start going back and forth. My buddy John likes Belgian chocolates. Suffice to say, is a few bars get into the box. For, you know, you might want to bring a few things for friends, etc., that you know, they haven't seen in a while and they're living here full time. So, you know, think strongly about what you need and what you don't need when you come to the Philippines. If you're a big fellow like Justin Cormack, who's got a vlog here, he's a diver. He's been doing a 100-pound loss program on YouTube. You know, he must struggle with getting clothes here. I'm not sure if he's getting it shipped or whatever, but I haven't run across how he's getting his clothes. But he's a big boy, this one, you know. And I'm not sure how a lot of the foreigners are getting their clothes that live here full time, because a lot of them are big guys. I do know of one fellow that orders from Bangkok, because the tailoring business in Bangkok is huge, absolutely huge. So yeah, you know, you do shift as the country shifts into products. You might find that you just don't need to bring it anymore. But if you've got something unusual like deodorant, in my case with the psoriasis, then I got to be very, very careful what I put on my skin. In my particular case, you know, as I'm doing right now, I'm standing in the sun. I'm cautious about the sun. I do not burn in the sun, but the more sun I get, the more tolerant my skin is to various products that might accidentally get on my skin. So, you know your health, know what you can and can't get away with legally, is you do not want to find that you need a pain medication here in the Philippines. What is your alternative? Because, you know, things like morphine and stuff, that can be very, very hard to get through, okay? Well, you're not getting it through as in bringing it with you, but even going to a doctor and saying, here's my prescription, and in my Western country, I need it refilled. They might start shaking their head and saying, no, 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 no. You could use Tylenol 3 or something along those lines. But we know from these pain medications, boy, they can be very, very targeted. And you don't want to get into a situation where your pain is a a very specific thing, because most of us, we've taken a lot of time to figure out what works and what doesn't work, a la my pit paste. So guys, spend a little time on that, and then over time you'll find out what's important to you. And if you are the kind of person that really does want a few of these Western things, or you're a big fellow that going to need clothing and such like that, boy, that was much more better English, then you might want to consider setting up with somebody in your native country to send you a Billig Bayan box, even once a year. Okay guys, this old carcass is signing off. We're going to go down and see about how to get around in the Philippines next. That'll be the next vlog. Later, Gators.